Have you ever sat in your favorite chair in a completely quiet room, but felt like you were standing on the edge of a cliff in a windstorm? Your front door is locked. The temperature is perfect. There is no immediate threat in sight. Yet, every muscle in your shoulder blades is pulled tight, and your chest feels hollow. It's that exhausting state of being too unsafe to rest. If you know exactly what that weight feels like, take a moment right now to leave a comment saying, "I am learning how to find my own solid ground." Let that be your anchor today. We talk so much about managing our schedules, but we rarely talk about what happens when our internal thermostat is broken, when our bodies refuse to believe that we are actually out of danger. It is a strange kind of loneliness to be trapped inside a mind that is constantly bracing for impact. You look around at your surroundings, and everything seems normal. The clock is ticking softly on the wall. The morning light is filtering through the window, hitting the floorboards just like it does every day. Outside, people are walking by, living their lives, completely unaware of the quiet earthquake happening inside of you. You tell yourself you should be calm. You list all the reasons why you are okay. But your body isn't listening to your words. It is listening to a different channel entirely, one that is broadcasting a constant, low-frequency warning. This is the invisible architecture of anxiety. It builds a room with no walls around you. Even when you are inside a solid house, you feel completely exposed, as if the roof could be torn off at any second. You cannot lean back into your life because you are too busy holding it up. If you relax your grip, even for a moment, it feels like everything will come crashing down. So you stay on guard. You sit on the very edge of the cushion, ready to spring into action, ready to defend yourself against a threat that hasn't even chosen a shape yet. Think about how much energy it takes to live this way. When you are constantly scanning for danger, your mind never gets to come home. It is always out there, patrolling the perimeter, checking the fences, wondering what is coming around the next corner. You might be having a conversation with someone you love, but only half of you is actually there. The other half is listening for the sound of the floorboards creaking, or waiting for the other shoe to drop. It makes you feel distant, even from yourself. You become a visitor in your own life, watching everything through a thick sheet of glass. We try so hard to pretend everything is fine. We smile, we nod, we keep up with our daily routines. But underneath the surface, there is a profound sense of exhaustion. It is the fatigue of a soldier who has been on watch for weeks without a break. You want nothing more than to just lay your head down and let go. But the moment you close your eyes, the alarm sounds again. Your heart begins to thud against your ribs, a harsh reminder that your internal system does not think it is safe to sleep. This is not a flaw in your character, and it is not a lack of willpower. It is simply what happens when a human being has been carrying too much for too long. Your system has learned that the world is a fragile place, and it is doing everything it can to keep you from being caught off guard again. But living in a room with no walls is no way to live. It is a state of survival, not a state of being. And before we can even begin to fix it, we have to acknowledge just how heavy it is to hold those imaginary walls up every single day. We have to stop punishing ourselves for being afraid and start realizing that this frantic state is actually a desperate cry for shelter. Let's take a deep breath together. Right now, recognize the weight we've been carrying and admit that we are ready to find a different way to live. When you live with this kind of persistent unease, relaxation isn't a relief. It feels like an ambush. You might finally get a free evening, sit down on the couch to watch a movie, and suddenly feel a wave of dread. Your mind immediately starts scanning the horizon for a problem to solve. If there isn't a problem, your brain will happily manufacture one. You find yourself pacing the floor, adjusting the blinds, or reviewing a conversation you had 3 years ago with a coworker. It is incredibly tiring to be the bodyguard for a life that isn't actually under attack right now. You are doing a job you never applied for, 24 hours a day. This high alert is a quiet thief. It steals the small, beautiful moments that are supposed to nourish us. Think about the last time you tried to take a walk just to enjoy the evening air. Instead of feeling the breeze or hearing the wind in the trees, your mind was likely spinning a web of endless what-ifs. You walk down the sidewalk, but mentally, you are miles away, fighting battles that haven't even happened yet. Your eyes are open, but you aren't really seeing the world around you. You are looking through a lens of pure survival. Every shadow looks like a threat, and every unexpected sound makes your stomach drop. It is a deeply frustrating paradox. The more you desperately need to rest, the harder your mind fights against it. When you finally stop moving, the quiet becomes too loud. In the stillness, all the accumulated tension of the day rises to the surface, and your brain panics. It interprets the sudden lack of activity as vulnerability. To your anxious mind, being relaxed means you have let your guard down, and letting your guard down means you are open to being hurt. So, it floods your system with adrenaline just to keep you awake, keeping you on your feet, keeping you moving. This is why you feel so physically drained, even on days when you haven't done much heavy lifting. Your muscles are constantly working, locked in a subtle, invisible brace. You hold your breath without realizing it, taking shallow sips of air rather than full, deep breaths. Your jaw is clenched while you drive. Your shoulders are hiked up to your ears while you sit at your desk, and your hands are balled into tight fists under the blankets at night. You are running a marathon while sitting completely still. No wonder your bones feel heavy, and no wonder your mind feels wrapped in a thick, gray fog. The exhaustion of high alert also means that your emotional threshold becomes incredibly thin. Because you are already using 90% of your energy just to keep yourself contained, you have very little left over for the actual ups and downs of daily life. A small setback, like dropping a glass of water, missing a green light, or finding out a plan changed at the last minute, can feel like an absolute catastrophe. You find yourself tearing up or snapping at someone you care about, not because you are angry at them, but because your cup is already full to the brim. You are operating on the very edge of your margin, with absolutely no room to spare. We often minimize this exhaustion. We tell ourselves that we are just stressed, or that everyone feels this way. But there is a distinct difference between normal, everyday stress and the crushing weight of chronic high alert. Stress is about what is happening on your calendar. High alert is about what is happening in your nervous system. It is the feeling of being hunted by an invisible ghost. You want so badly to just drop the shield, to close your eyes, and trust that the world will keep spinning without your constant supervision. But until you can teach your body that it is safe to do so, the shield remains glued to your hand, heavy and unyielding, wearing you down piece by piece. We try to cope in ways that look normal from the outside. For instance, you might become deeply obsessed with organizing your digital files, rewriting your daily to-do lists for the upcoming week, or meticulously planning a budget down to the last penny. We tell ourselves we are just being responsible. But if we are honest, it is a frantic attempt to control our environment so thoroughly that uncertainty cannot touch us. We think if we can just predict every outcome, we will finally be allowed to sit down and breathe. But the finish line keeps moving. The more we organize, the more things we find that could potentially go wrong. This is the great illusion that many of us fall into. The belief that if we are constantly moving, the anxiety cannot catch us. We transform our inner panic into external momentum. We become masters of the small task. You might find yourself scrubbing the kitchen counters for the third time in an hour, sorting through the clothes in your closet by color, or deleting old text messages just to feel a sense of order. From the outside, you look like a model of efficiency. People might even compliment you on how much you get done, or how organized your life appears to be. But they don't see the invisible fire burning under your feet. They don't see that you are cleaning and organizing because the chaos inside your chest feels completely unmanageable. It is a deeply painful way to live because it turns your life into an endless series of boxes to check. You begin to tie your sense of safety directly to your level of output. If you have a highly productive day, you feel a brief, fleeting sense of relief, a momentary pause in the storm. But the next morning, you wake up, and the counter resets to 0. The anxiety returns, demanding another sacrifice of your time and energy. You realize, with a heavy heart, that you cannot outrun a feeling with a to-do list. The spreadsheets and the perfectly labeled folders are just paper shields against a tidal wave. They give us the appearance of control, but deep down, we know it is a fragile house of cards. Think about what happens when you finally force yourself to stop. When the chores are done, the tasks are finished, and there is nothing left to organize. The silence settles into the room, and instead of feeling accomplished, you feel an overwhelming sense of panic. The emptiness feels dangerous. Without a task to distract you, your mind is left alone with the very feelings you have been trying to outrun. This is why we keep finding new things to do. We become afraid of our own stillness. We treat rest as if it were a dangerous luxury, a weakness that will allow the worst-case scenarios to finally break through our defenses and ruin our lives. We are trying to solve an emotional problem with practical tools, and it simply does not work. You cannot organize your way out of fear. You cannot schedule your way into peace of mind. When we use productivity as a shield, we are fundamentally telling ourselves that we are only safe as long as we are useful, or as long as we are perfect. It places a crushing burden on our shoulders. It means we can never just be. We can never just sit on the porch and watch the sunset without thinking about what we should be doing instead. We become prisoners of our own competence, building our own cages out of color-coded calendars and endless reminders. To break free from this cycle, we have to recognize the lie for what it is. We have to look at our frantic need to be productive and gently say to ourselves, I am doing all of this because I am scared, not because it needs to be done. It takes immense courage to leave a task unfinished, to let a project sit, and to choose to sit with the discomfort instead. It means accepting that life will always be a little bit messy, a little bit unpredictable, and completely beyond our total control. True protection doesn't come from a flawless schedule or a pristine environment. It comes from the quiet, internal realization that you are allowed to exist, and you are allowed to be safe, even when absolutely nothing is getting done. Carl Jung once wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." When anxiety takes over, it's often because a hidden part of us is screaming for attention, convinced that a disaster is just around the corner. We spend so much energy trying to push that anxiety into a basement drawer, hoping it will just stay quiet. We tell ourselves to get over it, or we try to logic our way out of a physical feeling. But you cannot reason with a fire alarm. The alarm doesn't care about logic. It just wants to know that you hear it. Deep inside, every person who struggles with chronic unease is a hidden self that is completely exhausted and deeply afraid. It is a part of you that perhaps learned a long time ago that the world isn't a soft place, or that love and safety are things that can be taken away without warning. This hidden self is the one keeping you awake at 3 a.m., pacing the floor of your mind, asking the questions you are too afraid to voice during the day. It isn't trying to make your life difficult. It is simply acting like a frightened child who has been left alone in the dark for too long, knocking on the door, begging you to turn on the light and come inside. But our usual response to this inner knocking is to turn up the volume of our lives so we don't have to hear it. We rush into conversations. We overcommit our time, or we mentally scold ourselves for being so fragile. We think that if we ignore the fear, it will eventually get tired and go away. But the opposite happens. When you ignore someone who is terrified, they don't become calmer. They yell louder to get your attention. That is exactly what a sudden panic attack or a wave of unexplained dread is. It is your hidden self breaking through the surface because it cannot survive being ignored for another single second. Meeting this part of yourself requires you to completely drop your defenses. It means stopping the fight against your own mind. Imagine how different it would feel if the next time your chest tightens and your mind begins to race, you didn't treat yourself like an enemy to be conquered. What if, instead, you took a soft breath and said to that hidden, trembling part of you, "I see you. I know you are terrified right now, and I am not going to run away from you anymore." This is what it means to make the unconscious conscious. It is the act of turning toward your own pain with open arms rather than a raised shield. This meeting is often painful because it requires us to face our absolute vulnerability. It forces us to admit that despite our outward success, our organized lives, and the brave faces we show to the world, there is a part of us that feels small and unsafe. We are so afraid that if we acknowledge this hidden self, we will be completely consumed by it, that the fear will become a permanent trap. But the beautiful truth of human nature is that the moment a feeling is genuinely seen and validated, its grip begins to loosen. The tension starts to melt when it realizes it no longer has to fight so hard just to be noticed. You cannot think your way into feeling secure because the fear lives below your thoughts. It lives in the quiet, unexamined corners of your history. Healing begins on the day you decide to build a relationship with your anxiety rather than trying to execute it. It is an invitation to stop treating yourself like a project that needs to be fixed, and to start treating yourself like a human being who deserves to be comforted. When you finally sit down with your hidden self, without judgment or conditions, you realize that you don't need the world to become perfectly safe before you can rest. You just need to know that you are no longer at war with your own heart. Instead of trying to silence the alarm, what happens if we actually look at it? This transitions us into a completely different relationship with our discomfort. Jung suggested that every form of addiction is bad, no matter whether the narcotic be alcohol, morphine, or idealism. For many of us, our ultimate narcotic is the constant need for certainty. We are addicted to feeling secure before we allow ourselves to rest. But true safety doesn't come from a life devoid of friction. It comes from trusting that we can handle the friction when it arrives. Turning toward the noise means making a radical choice to stop running. Think about how much of your daily life is spent trying to outmaneuver your own thoughts. You hear a faint whisper of anxiety, and immediately you reach for a distraction, tune into a podcast, or find a physical task to numb the rising tide. We treat the noise in our minds like a monster outside the window, convinced that if we look it in the eye, it will destroy us. But when we constantly turn our backs on our fear, we give it all our power. We allow it to dictate where we go, how we breathe, and how we live. Imagine standing in the middle of a room while a loud, confusing sound blares from a hidden speaker. Your natural instinct is to cover your ears, run to the corner, and wish desperately for it to stop. But what happens if you walk directly toward the sound? What if you actively try to find where it is coming from? The moment you turn your body toward the discomfort, something profound shifts inside your nervous system. You are no longer the victim being chased. You become the observer. You are choosing to face the storm, not because you want to fight it, but because you want to understand it. When we turn toward the noise, we often discover that the things we were so terrified of are much smaller up close. The abstract, overwhelming cloud of dread usually boils down to a few very human fears: the fear of being alone, the fear of failing, or the fear of not being enough. When you name those fears out loud, they lose their monstrous proportions. They stop being a chaotic storm and become what they truly are: just feelings traveling through your body. Feelings have a beginning, a middle, and an end. They are like waves that rise, crest, and eventually break upon the shore. But we only ever experience the terrifying crest of the wave because we run away before it has a chance to dissolve. It takes an immense amount of emotional bravery to sit still while the internal noise is loud. It means sitting on your couch with your hands open, letting the discomfort wash over you without trying to fix it, escape it, or judge it. It means saying to yourself, "Let me feel this. Let me see what this anxiety is actually made of." When you allow the noise to exist without fighting it, the quality of the noise changes. It stops being a piercing shriek and begins to sound like what it truly is: a desperate, clumsy attempt by your system to keep you safe. We have become so addicted to the idealism of a perfect, peaceful life that we have forgotten how to handle the natural messiness of being human. We think that if we are anxious, we must be doing something wrong. But turning toward the noise is the ultimate act of self-acceptance. It is the moment you decide that you are strong enough to hold your own pain. You realize that you do not need the noise to vanish in order to find peace. You just need to know that you can stand right in the center of the roar, completely grounded, and realize that the noise cannot actually break you. Your body is not trying to ruin your day. When your heart is racing, while you are simply standing at the kitchen counter, making a cup of tea, your nervous system is actually trying to protect you. It remembers every time you were caught off guard in the past. It remembers the sudden bad news, the unexpected departures, the moments you felt completely helpless. It has decided that it is much better to keep you awake, tense, and miserable than to let you lower your guard and get hurt again. When we understand this, we can stop being angry at our bodies for feeling frantic. It is incredibly frustrating when your mind knows you are safe, but your body refuses to believe it. You look down at your hands and notice they are trembling, even though you are just holding a piece of toast. You feel a tight, heavy knot in the pit of your stomach that makes it impossible to eat, or a sudden shortness of breath that makes you feel like you are suffocating in an open room. It feels like a betrayal. You want to scream at your own skin and bones. Why are you doing this to me? There is nothing wrong. But your body is not your enemy. It is just a highly sensitive instrument that has been tuned to a world it perceives as dangerous. Think of your physical symptoms as a language without words. Your body cannot speak to you in sentences, so it speaks to you in sensations. A racing pulse is its way of saying, I need to run. A tight jaw is its way of saying, I am trying to hold myself together. The cold sweat on your palms is the physical preparation for a fight you aren't actually having. When you view these symptoms through the lens of frustration, they only get worse. The fear of the sensation creates a secondary wave of panic, locking you into a cruel cycle where your physical fear creates mental terror, which then creates more physical fear. To break this cycle, we have to look at our physical symptoms with an immense amount of gentleness. We have to realize that our bodies are carrying the historical record of everything we have ever survived. Every time you had to swallow your feelings to get through a difficult day, every time you had to be strong for someone else when you were breaking inside, and every time you were shocked by life's unpredictability, your body stored that energy. It didn't just vanish. It stayed in the fibers of your muscles, waiting for a moment when it thought it was finally allowed to come to the surface. When you are sitting in a quiet place and your body suddenly goes into a panic, it is often because it finally feels a small window of safety to release that stored-up tension. It is like an old dam finally springing a leak. If we can shift our perspective, we can stop viewing these physical reactions as a malfunction. Instead of trying to freeze or push the feelings away, we can try to soften around them. We can let our shoulders drop 1/8 of an inch. We can place a hand over our racing heart and acknowledge the incredible work it has done to keep us alive, even when it was working in overdrive. Your physical self has been your most faithful companion through every single storm you have ever faced. It has walked you through the darkest seasons, carried you when you felt completely empty, and kept your lungs moving through every night you thought you wouldn't survive. It deserves our compassion, not our anger. When you stop fighting the physical reality of fear and instead learn to breathe through it, you give your body permission to finally finish the stress cycle. You allow the adrenaline to rise, peak, and safely wash away, proving to your system that you can feel the physical echo of danger without actually being destroyed by it. So, how do we actually signal to our system that the storm has passed? It doesn't happen through big, dramatic life changes. It happens in the tiny, mundane moments. It's noticing the physical weight of your feet pressing into the hardwood floor while you wait for the microwave to beep. It's focusing entirely on the temperature of the water running over your hands at the sink, observing how it feels against your skin without trying to fix or change anything. These small physical realities are proof to your nervous system that you are here, right now, and that this exact second is manageable. When your mind is spinning at 100 miles an hour, trying to think your way into calmness is like trying to catch the wind with a net. Your thoughts are the very things so causing the chaos, so you cannot use them as your escape route. Instead, you have to bypass your intellect entirely and drop straight down into your physical senses. The present moment is the only place where anxiety cannot survive. Anxiety is a time traveler. It lives in the future, worrying about what might happen, or it lives in the past, regretting what already did. It cannot exist in the absolute immediate now. Think about the objects right around you that you normally ignore. The heavy ceramic texture of the mug you are holding, the rough weave of the fabric on your couch, or the simple sound of the refrigerator humming in the background. These are not just background elements of your life. They are lifeboats. When you intentionally choose to give your full, undivided attention to the texture of a blanket against your fingers, you are pulling your mind back from the dangerous future. You are tethering yourself to reality. You are whispering to your frantic heart, "Look at this. This object is real. This moment is stable. We are right here." We often overlook these simple anchors because they seem too small to fight something as massive as anxiety. We want a grand solution, a magic phrase, or a sudden realization that cures us forever. But healing is built out of crumbs, not feasts. It is the cumulative effect of choosing 100 times a day to come back to the room you are actually sitting in. It's pausing before you turn a doorknob to feel the cool metal against your palm. It's taking one single conscious breath before you answer a text message, noticing how your ribs expand and contract. These tiny moments of awareness act as a brake pedal for your racing nervous system. Each time you ground yourself in a physical sensation, you send a quiet, undeniable message to your brain. In this exact second, I am okay. The house is not on fire right now. The bad news is not arriving in this very breath. You don't have to figure out how you will survive next month, or next week, or even tomorrow evening. You only have to exist in the next 5 seconds. Anyone can survive 5 seconds of a physical sensation. When you break time down into these tiny, manageable pieces, the giant monster of anxiety suddenly looks incredibly small. Let yourself lean into these anchors without expecting them to fix you instantly. They are not meant to make the anxiety vanish by magic. They are meant to give you a safe place to stand while the feeling moves through you. It is about building a habit of returning to yourself. The next time you feel that familiar wave of panic rising in your chest, stop trying to solve the problem in your head. Look around the space you are in. Find 3 things you can touch, 2 things you can hear, and 1 thing you can physically feel against your skin. Let the world catch you. Trust that the ground beneath you is solid enough to hold your weight, and let yourself arrive in the only moment you actually have. We often think healing means the complete absence of anxiety. We wait for a day when we wake up with total, uninterrupted peace. But real growth is much more about expanding our capacity to sit with discomfort. As Jung wisely observed, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. That includes accepting the version of you that is trembling, the version that is hypervigilant, and the version that finds it incredibly hard to just sit still on a Sunday afternoon. When you stop fighting the anxiety, you stop doubling its power. Imagine how much energy you spend every single day simply wishing you were different. You feel the familiar tightness in your chest, and your very first thought is a wave of frustration. Not again. Why can't I just be normal? Why do I have to struggle with this while everyone else seems fine? This internal rejection is like throwing fuel onto a fire. You aren't just dealing with the initial fear anymore. You are now dealing with the shame of being afraid, the anger of being stuck, and the grief of missing out on a peaceful mind. We turn a passing storm into a permanent climate because we refuse to let the rain fall. Accepting the uncomfortable companion means calling a ceasefire in your own mind. It is the gentle understanding that anxiety might just be a passenger in your car for a while. It doesn't mean you have to hand over the steering wheel, and it doesn't mean you have to let it choose the destination. It just means you stop trying to push it out of the moving vehicle. You acknowledge its presence in the seat next to you. You say, "Okay, I feel that familiar ache in my stomach today. I feel that restless energy in my limbs. It's here, and that's just how my body is responding right now." This shift changes everything. When you stop treating your unease as a sign of failure, it loses its ability to terrify you. It transforms from an existential threat into an inconvenient truth. Think about how a heavy rainstorm affects your plans for the day. You might be disappointed that you can't go for a picnic, but you don't stand at the window screaming at the clouds, demanding they stop dropping water. You accept that it is raining. You put on a sweater, and you adjust your day. We need to learn how to offer that exact same grace to our internal weather. There is an incredible, profound relief that comes when you finally stop trying to fix yourself. When you look at the parts of you that are broken, anxious, and deeply sensitive, and you choose to stop fighting them, a deep warmth settles into your life. You realize that you don't need to be perfectly healed to be worthy of love, connection, or a quiet life. You are allowed to be a beautifully messy work in progress. You can carry a trembling heart and still take a meaningful step forward. You can feel a wave of dread and still sit at the table and enjoy a warm cup of tea with someone you love. When we accept the uncomfortable companion, we are finally practicing true self-compassion. We are stopping the endless cycle of hiding and pretending. We are stopping the endless cycle of hiding and pretending. We are looking in the mirror and saying, "I see your fear, and I am not going to abandon you because of it." This acceptance is the real doorway to safety. It creates a space inside of you where it is finally okay to not be okay. The anxiety may not disappear overnight, but its voice will begin to soften. It stops being a cruel master and becomes just a small, scared part of your story. A part that you are finally strong enough and kind enough to carry without breaking. You do not need to wait for your external circumstances to become perfect before you allow yourself to drop your shoulders. Your environment might be loud, your schedule might be demanding, and the future will always be a bit unwritten. But you can build a portable sense of shelter inside your own mind. It starts by saying to yourself, I am uncomfortable right now, but I am not in immediate danger. I can be anxious and safe at the same time. Allowing those two truths to coexist is where the real shift begins. We often make the mistake of looking for safety outside of ourselves. We think, if I can just get through this week, if I can just finish this project, or if I can just get back into my own living room, then I will finally feel secure. But when we depend entirely on our surroundings to give us peace, we are always at the mercy of a changing world. A loud noise, a sudden change in plans, or an insensitive remark from someone else can instantly shatter our fragile comfort. A portable sanctuary is different. It is an internal hiding place that you carry with you into every room you enter, every conversation you have, and every difficult environment you face. Think of it as a quiet clearing in the middle of a dense, chaotic forest. No matter how loud the wind is blowing outside that clearing, the center remains completely still. You build this inner shelter out of the gentle phrases you choose to speak to yourself when the world gets overwhelming. It is the practice of becoming your own protector. When you feel the familiar wave of panic rising while you are standing in a crowded grocery store or sitting in an uncomfortable meeting, you can mentally step back into this sanctuary. You can close your eyes for just 1 second and remind yourself that the chaos around you does not have permission to live inside you. Creating this sanctuary requires you to stop expecting your environment to change before you do. It means realizing that you can have a storm raging all around you, demands on your time, unexpected challenges, the noise of daily life, and still remain anchored within your own skin. It is like being inside a sturdy cabin while a winter blizzard howls outside. You can hear the wind battering the windows. You can see the snow piling up against the glass. But the cold cannot touch you. You are warm, dry, and protected. Not because the storm stopped, but because the walls around you are solid. You can build these walls out of your own compassion. Every time you refuse to scold yourself for feeling overwhelmed, you add another brick to your shelter. Every time you take a slow, quiet breath and let your jaw soften in the middle of a stressful moment, you reinforce the roof. This inner sanctuary becomes a place where you are allowed to drop the heavy mask of perfection. Inside these mental walls, you don't have to have everything figured out. You don't have to prove your worth to anyone. You are allowed to just be a human being who is doing their absolute best to navigate a complicated world. This portable sanctuary is the ultimate gift you can give to your weary nervous system. It means you are no longer a victim of your circumstances, desperately searching for a safe corner in a hostile world. You realize that the safe corner is already inside you, waiting for you to return to it. The next time you feel the world spinning out of control and the familiar feeling of being unsafe begins to take over, take a step back into your own heart. Breathe in the quiet of your inner clearing. Wrap yourself in your own kindness. And remember that no matter where you go, you always carry your own home within you. You have been carrying a heavy shield for a very long time, and your arms are exhausted. It is okay to put it down on the floor for just 5 minutes. The world will not fall apart if you stop guarding it for the next few moments. You are allowed to be tired. You are allowed to not have the next step figured out. Rest is not a reward you earn after you have fixed everything. It is the exact tool you need in order to heal. Let your breath deepen. Let your jaw soften. And let yourself just exist exactly as you are. Think about how much weight you have actually been holding. It's not just the tasks on your calendar or the demands of your daily routine. It is the invisible burden of keeping everyone else okay, of making sure no one is disappointed in you, and of constantly trying to anticipate the next problem before it arrives. You have become so accustomed to the weight that you don't even realize your posture has changed to accommodate it. Your neck is stiff, your back is aching, and your soul feels incredibly bruised. You have been playing the role of the savior, the keeper of the peace, and the protector of your world, all while your own inner home was falling apart. It takes an immense amount of courage to admit that you cannot carry it all anymore. We live in a world that praises constant endurance, a world that tells us that stopping is a sign of weakness. But there is a sacred bravery in simply stopping where you are, dropping your bags on the ground, and saying, "I have nothing left to give right now." That is not failure. It is honesty. It is a profound acknowledgement of your own beautiful, fragile humanity. You are not made of stone or steel. You are made of skin, bone, heart, and feeling. You were never meant to be a machine that runs forever without maintenance or care. Imagine what it would feel like to give yourself genuine, unconditional permission to just let go of the rope. Think of a game of tug-of-war you've been playing with your worries, your fears, and your endless responsibilities. You are pulling with all your might. Your hands are raw and blistered, and your feet are slipping in the dirt. You think that if you let go, the monster on the other side will win. But what if you just dropped the rope? The monster doesn't chase you. It just falls backward, and suddenly your hands are free. The battle ends the moment you choose to stop participating in the struggle. This doesn't mean you are abandoning your life or neglecting the people who rely on you. It just means you are recognizing that a broken vessel cannot pour out any water. Taking a few moments to lay down your shield is how you gather the strength to keep living. It is a declaration that your well-being matters just as much as the things you are trying to fix. The emails can wait in their folders. The chores can stay unfinished. The unresolved conversations can rest until tomorrow. Right now, in this exact window of time, your only responsibility is to allow your nervous system to return to zero. Let yourself feel the relief of being unimportant to the world for just a brief moment. The stars will keep burning, the earth will keep spinning, and the oceans will still move even if you take your hands off the controls. You are allowed to step off the stage and sit in the quiet darkness of the wings. Let your breath go all the way down into your stomach, filling up the spaces that have been tight and restricted all day long. Feel the support of the chair or the floor beneath you, realizing that you don't even have to hold yourself up. Something else is already doing that for you. You have done an incredible job surviving up to this point. You have navigated seasons that felt entirely unnavigable, and you have kept a tender heart through moments that could have easily made you cold. But the fight is over for today. The night is coming, or the day is moving on, and you are allowed to rest. Take off the heavy armor you've outgrown. Unclench your hands. Let the tension drain out of your body like water sinking into dry earth. You are safe enough. You are loved enough. And you are entirely enough, exactly as you are, doing absolutely nothing at all. As we close this space together, take a long, slow breath and notice the shift in the air around you. You have traveled through the landscape of your own exhaustion, met the parts of yourself that have been hiding in the dark, and practiced the brave art of turning toward the noise. Healing is not a race to a finish line where anxiety never exists again. It is simply the quiet, daily practice of building a home inside yourself that is strong enough to weather any storm. You do not have to change everything today, and you do not have to be completely healed by tomorrow morning. Growth happens in the tiny, unseen moments, in the choice to drop your shoulders while you stand at the window, in the willingness to let an unfinished task sit on the table, and in the gentleness you offer to your body when your heart begins to race. You are the architect of your own portable sanctuary, and its doors are always open to you, no matter how loud the world outside becomes. Thank you for leaning into this conversation, for honoring your own fragility, and for having the immense courage to look for your own solid ground. As you step back into the rhythm of your day, carry this one truth with you. You are allowed to be both a work in progress and completely safe at the exact same time. The shield is on the floor, your hands are free, and you are finally allowed to rest. Take care of yourself.